Welcome to our second episode of Prime Cuts, a truncated episode where the Chopping It Up boys engage in a freeform conversation discussing a range of horror mediums, including TV series, theatrical movie releases, horror anthologies, graphic novels, and horror miniseries, among others. Prime Cuts is a quick-hitting, unedited discussion designed to provoke and engage viewers on a range of horror topics. These mini episodes will be interspersed between our traditional full-length episodes. Once again, I'm your host, Jesse Goodman, and I'm joined by co-host and producer Jay, as well as co-host and field reporter Michael Sled. Welcome to our second edition of this feature as we engage in a discussion about the first episode of the first season of Black Summer, a Netflix series that debuted in 2019. Okay, so just like last time, none of us have discussed what we thought of this show or the movie previously last week. So we're coming to this fresh. We are still one person down here. Joel cannot join us tonight. So maybe he just cut out of the regular Prime Cuts. Jazz, what do you think?
That's your call.
No, he'll be back. But so this is just us three, just like last time when we did In a Violent Nature. So without knowing anything, what'd you guys think? Well, I guess we should start with, had we seen it before? Have you guys seen this before?
I had seen it before. I'd seen the whole series of Black Summer.
Okay, so there's 2 seasons. Sled, you hadn't seen any of it, right?
No, I hadn't watched it before this.
What did you think? We're gonna let the contrarian go first. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm not a huge zombie guy, so it was fine. I mean, I just feel like there's a glut of zombie stuff. I don't know how many different versions of zombie shows they have to make before they're tired of the genre. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. I mean, going off one episode, I might watch a few others, but it's not necessarily up my alley of things to watch.
All right, Jazz, what do you think of it? You're a zombie. You're kind of a zombie guy.
Yeah, I like zombie stuff just because I kind of like post-apocalyptic survival, as mentioned over text. Like I've been binging a lot of these siege horror kind of things, which is a favorite genre of mine. But I think it is a fun, dumb show. I mean, it's just fun and dumb. And there's basically no character development. And that's basically true for the whole series, for people using the whole series. And it's basically just you take kind of the...
Well, there's the MacGuffin. There's going to be, right, the MacGuffin for season 1 is whatever it is. In this case, it's the daughter that they have to pursue, or that the mother, Rose, has to pursue, which is supposed to be at the rally point at the stadium. So the entire season sort of spreads that out.
Yeah. But I really, I like... that it just kind of, the way I would describe it is it's kind of that the opening escape sequence from Zack Snyder's 2009 Dawn of the Dead, just like stretched out into first an episode. And in some sense, that's kind of like at least what the entire first season is. Does these little vignettes of survivors surviving.
Before we get nitpicked by our many fans here, 2004 for Zack Snyder's remake.
Right.
I'm with you. I mean, I've seen all the episodes, both seasons. I think it's a worthy investment for someone who's into zombie stuff, who's into horror stuff. It's well shot. It's competent filmmaking. If like you said, it's limited by the writing and the character development or lack thereof, but it engages for other reasons. It reminds me a little bit, and Sled will probably jump through the screen and kill me for this one, but it reminds me a little bit of like early Richard Linklater, right? Did you ever see what he did? It was called Slacker before he hit it big with anything, right? And you're kind of like a fly on the wall in all of these various conversations for all of these characters. And you float around in Slacker, you float around Austin with all of these misanthropes and these marginalized weirdos, right? But like with this one, you're just getting glimpses of you're following God. I mean, at some point in the first episode, you're actually the young lady who gets hit by the truck and dies. You see it from 3 different perspectives over the course of the first episode. And the third one is actually follows her as a zombie for a short period of time. And so you're left to piece these things together as all of these lives intersect randomly. Now they bring it together at the end of this episode nicely, right? They want to tie it all together, so you have this crew of ragtag survivors that you can push forward with some coherent narrative. But like the idea isn't bad, I don't think.
No, to me it's like I say, it's fun and it's dumb. I don't mean dumb in a strictly pejorative sense. It's, you know, I don't think it's trying to say anything unique or new. Like sometimes I think people get into these genre things and it's like, if I'm going to make a new zombie movie, like what new thing am I going to do? What new thing am I going to say, without necessarily focusing on just, you know, being sort of entertaining and competent. You know, it's almost like the inverse of In a Violent Nature. In a Violent Nature really was trying desperately hard to be novel and original and do something new. And I think along the way, most of what makes a good or entertaining or watchable movie didn't quite make it. You know, well, and whereas for this one, I think it's like, we're not trying to necessarily say anything new or anything.
No.
We're just kind of doing like almost like the best parts of like a zombie thing, which is all these like escape sequences.
Yes.
And we're just going to be kinetic about it the whole time. And the series is best when it's doing that kinetic thing. Moving. And the series is weakest when it pauses and tries to like give oxygen to the character development, which is just, you know, very mediocre.
Yeah.
So I don't think two seasons, right? They're not making any more. Is that right?
Yeah. They stopped after 2. I mean, the first season as its own unit, you know, as this discrete unit, like silo, it works. I mean, I think what you're saying, Jazz, and I'm with you, is like, it's not necessarily pejorative to say that this is like a very derivative concept for a show. But it's entertaining and it moves fast. And it's all the stuff that you want from horror stuff, right? Like you said,
absolutely.
And especially that sort of like fetish for, like we talk about that you've been running on the last few weeks, this like survivalist band in apocalypse or post-apocalypse, that you want to see like how these people survive. I just wanted to say that like they were creative in how they start, right? They throw you right into it, in medias res right off the bat, right in the middle of the narrative, right in the middle of the action. I like some of the camera angles, how they sweep around, they cut, they move over the shoulder, and you get to see different perspectives. And you see people in the background. The more that you watch it, like you're like, oh, that's where the couple, where the guy and his girlfriend who gets hit by the car, like you see them walking in like one very short panning shot from above, that they're like in the bottom corner of the screen. And like you see that later on, and you start to put together geographically where everyone is, and then like chronologically how everything unfolds.
You had to pay attention to it. I mean, it definitely had that. I mean, it was like Jay was saying. I mean, it's dumb, but it's not that dumb to where you can just like, you have to be, or at least if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss out on stuff that they've intentionally included there, right? Like as far as what's going on.
So like, I mean, I think we can talk around it the whole time, but like there is a little bit of plot, right? A very little meat on the bone, but at the very end, when you run into the young black soldier and I mean, we'll call him Spears because he puts on the uniform that says Spears, but that's not his name, right? The guy who's being held captive by the other soldiers for some unnamed nebulous crime. But he starts talking like, I know this wasn't me. I didn't do this. You know, I have information. I have something that useful for you. That's why
he's Blasian, by the way. He's not just black. His mom's Chinese.
What's the actor's name? Do you have that up?
Justin Chu Carey.
Okay. Was he in anything else? I didn't do a deep dive on him.
I
know he's with Jazz. He's with both full seasons of this.
I believe that's correct.
Almost to the end of the second season.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't. I think this. Yeah, I mean, he's done some other stuff. I mean, he's not like an unknown actor.
Well, so he gives us the only bit of plot to move us forward from the first episode, and that happens in the last 10 or 12 minutes of this first episode, which is, again, not much meat on the bone, but it's like, okay, he has some information. He's being set up for something. What's going on?
And I think that's fine. I mean, I think, you know, all my like I said, my saying it's like dumb or like the character development is thin or whatever is like, I don't mean these as insults. I mean, like, it is its own thing in that respect, whereas, you know, it's not trying, I think, too hard to do that. And it ends up working because it ends up just being like extremely kinetic throughout almost the entire season. I think, and that's just fun. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, it takes you on the journey. There was
and I think it does a really good, especially the first episode, which is arguably the strongest episode of the first season. I just think does a just because it's like, I think it does a really good job of like making you feel the kind of chaos and mayhem and lack of coordination, lack of anything that I think a situation like that probably like entails in practice, right? So
let me dig down now just to have some fun with it for a second. As all three of us parents, the opening scene really bothered me
tremendously.
Hold on. I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, I thought that dad was a piece of shit. Like,
why?
He
should
have sent them on without him in the first fucking place. Like, he knows he's got whatever the deal is. Like, the best chance for his daughter and wife surviving is not being around him. Like, if he's getting sick and stuff.
The mom is stupid too.
The mom's a fucking moron. Like, I'm trying to imagine my wife. Like, there's no fucking way on earth Lisa would come with me back to the house instead of go with Isabel. And I wouldn't want her to. I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck? Get on the fucking truck. Like,
my question was more, you guys are 100% right, but actually I hadn't even.
Yeah, I have more on this, but you go, Jesse.
But I hadn't even, I didn't even get to where you already got to, Sled, which is that the guys, like, he should have already tapped out. But like what I was going with was more a logistical thing. Like, let's presume for the sake of argument that he was healthy or that he was going to sneak through the checkpoint and somehow nothing bad would come as a result. As a parent, it was literally, I paused it when it happened. I turned over to my wife and I said, if the three of us are getting evacuated in a post-apocalyptic scenario, we're going to get on a military vehicle. What order are we getting on that military vehicle? Yeah. And she goes, I don't know, but our kids will be in the middle. And I was like, yes, that's the only acceptable answer, is one parent in either location. One parent in the truck, one parent off the truck, so that no matter what fucking happens, the kids are going to be with one of us, right? And this guy puts his fucking kid on first.
Well, not only.
I can see. I don't think that's the worst decision he made. Like, I agree with what you're saying, but I could see in the heat of the moment being like, oh, like, I just want to get my kid on. Like, it's important that she gets on here first, so she gets out of here. Like, that's the person we definitely want to get out of here first. So I could see, the way
Jazz, hold on, Jazz had a take on this.
Well, I was just going to say, okay, so I think it's not only is it, not the optimal order, it's actually the worst possible way that they could do it. It's like the kid gets on. It's like, okay, you're going to put the kid on first. Then if you have to put who's next, who would it be? The person who's guaranteed to get on,
correct,
the wife.
Correct, right.
But instead you put, the guy on who's guaranteed to fuck up the situation.
Well, he just had a lot. He just had a lot of layers on.
Yeah, it was a disaster. And then, but I mean, yeah, to your point, I think like if it was real life, like the optimal order would probably be like one of you is tied to the hip with the kid, or in this case is one kid. So one of you tied to the hip with the kid. Fine, one of them has to like go through first, but before they board, then the parent comes right after, or the kid comes right after. The point is, it's like there's always like an opportunity. It's like, what if they don't let the kid on? Well, then there's still a parent left behind who can take care of the kid. Or, or the other way, it's like, what if they don't let the other parent on? Well, then there's a parent waiting for the kid. So yeah, I think the sandwich and the wife wouldn't get on before the kid is ready to get on, and they would get on together or something like that. But it's a total. And then to Sly's point about him being like an asshole, just like, he becomes like magnanimous at the worst possible time. Like after he's like, you have to go on. It's like, where was this guy?
Why'd you do this before, you fucking jerk off?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And by the way, only like 12 minutes had elapsed from the time that he was going to try to evacuate to he was like, until he was like, I literally can't move. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Go on.
Total disaster.
Well, I would just say that what bothered me more about it was that, like, I mean, when we talk about the writing there was like, if the entire MacGuffin for the season, the entire thing that sets the rest of the season into motion, the whole show is predicated entirely on this separation of mother and child. Like, you do it on a premise that doesn't pass the sniff test for any fucking half sane parent. Like, someone wrote that in there that your kid was going to you're going to put your kid on a military vehicle before you've gone through the checkpoint. Like that's what they wrote in there. I don't know. It just bugged me. But that aside, like you said, Jazz, this thing moves fast and it's entertaining and it gives you a lot. And Sled, if you haven't seen the rest of it, but we get a lot of different lines. It's very much that Linklater floating around, fly on the wall from Slacker kind of camera deal. I mean, you're going with all these different characters and they start developing their backstories in as much as they have backstories. It is kind of flat. But
I also like that, except for potentially maybe the mom, and even there, it's not a guarantee. No one really has invincible plot armor at all. Like at any given point, someone can die, and they do that with as much as there are sort of like main characters in it, across the season, like prominent characters, bite it at fairly random times. And I did enjoy that aspect as well. It's like, you're pretty sure that the mom, Rose, is probably going to make it. But pretty much everyone else, even Spears, you think like, something could happen at any given point. Something could happen. And I really like that.
Where do you, I know, Sled, you have a small part to draw from here, but like, how do you think this stacks up with like a series like The Walking Dead?
Never watched The Walking Dead.
Wow. All right. Well, that may have to be a mini episode of Prime Cuts coming.
Like I said, I don't watch a lot of zombie stuff. My favorite zombie stuff is probably like the first one, Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living, like, the original Romero.
Like black and white, like very much like social commentary. Like it's just a very like. I thought that movie was creepy as fuck. Just a lot of it, just the way it's filmed and like the setting and stuff. But I don't watch a lot of the other.
That's the shift, though. You like the atmospheric stuff. Which is flat out. They're trying to get more depth to it. This is not that. This is on steroids. But Jazz. So I know you're a graphic novel guy, and I know you watched some of The Walking Dead, right?
I watched the first couple of seasons, yeah.
Okay,
I read the comics before that, yeah.
So how do you compare these two, or do you think there is any comparison?
There's definitely a comparison. I think they're really very different. This one, Black Summer is, again, it's really like more or less nonstop kinetic energy. Like you probably don't go 5 minutes in the whole series without someone being chased or like fighting for their life. And there's, some character development in like extremely broad strokes, kind of things. But, in The Walking Dead, it's very character driven. The Walking Dead, you just take the difference in how they start.
Right.
Here you start in the middle of the apocalypse with like people being evacuated, shit's already hit the fan. You're kind of like at, not T-0, you're at T, +3 or something like that. And in Walking Dead, when it starts, it's like that this part is over, right? Rick Grimes wakes up in the hospital, after his town has been evacuated and a lot of the initial sort of mayhem has passed. And like, you just have bands of survivors, going searching for his family. And it's also just a very character driven show, on top of that. There's plenty of good set pieces and action things in the first season or two.
What I get with The Walking, the reason why I drew that comparison was because at some point, like you, after the first few seasons, I tuned out of Walking Dead because inevitably and invariably what happens when you talk about zombie shows or movies is it turns from what should ostensibly be the focus of any zombie film or series, which is zombies, and like how do we cure this plague on the planet and get back to normal society. But what happens in those series and some movies is it evolves into these factions of humans fighting each other, and then it becomes another soap opera with zombies as a backdrop. My deal with this is with Black Summer, I felt like they at least didn't there was no bait and switch for us. They started right out saying, no, this is really, the zombies are just a vehicle by which we're going to propel human drama. We're going to immediately break up into like feuding groups of people. And it's all about that human survival. So I appreciated that up front. Like that, this whole thing, Sled, there's episodes down the line where an entire episode is like a guy getting trapped in a bank or whatever it was. And the whole episode is him trying to get out of the bank and evade the zombies. It's like a cross between,
and there's almost no dialogue,
there's no dialogue.
So is this a prequel to Z Nation? From what I can tell,
it's a spin-off from it or something. I never watched Z Nation, but
I'm just reading Z Nation's supposed to be like 3 years into the apocalypse, so I have to assume that this is
right. This antedates. This antedates that. Yeah, because I mean, they're still doing air raid sirens at the outset of this, right? So it's like, and by the way, their evacuation plan, which actually now in 2024, I guess when this came out, I started watching it in the beginning of COVID, and I kept thinking like, oh man, this is unrealistic how like shabby and disorganized the government and the military in particular are. But then as I'm watching it, and they're like, do you know the checkpoint toward the end of the show?
I thought that was actually more organized than it would be realistically. I don't think they'd have anyone there. I don't think they'd have a single fucking truck there. Be like,
You just wake up.
0% chance.
If you can make it to where we're based at and centered at, otherwise we're not going to realistically, we don't have the resources, so we're not going to bother trying to engage in this kind of evacuation.
Maybe New York City or like big.
Is there somebody important who lives in this neighborhood?
Right.
Because then we're going to kill all of you and rescue them just to make sure you don't get on board. Like that would be more realistic.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that really awakened me to just how on our own we are. So that was one of them. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming.
No.
That happens.
So, Jazz, do you remember how this whole thing ends up? And we can go ahead and just ruin it for everyone for the second season.
I forget how. So. Does the first season end up with her finding the daughter at the stadium, or is that the second season?
No. The first season they end up. So they do. So I mean, each episode is like Jazz says, you're moving from one set piece to another for action, and that's fine. And they do the bare minimum to propel the unifying narrative. But yeah, she eventually makes it to the stadium. There's a stadium that they.
This is this season, first season.
This is the end of the first season. The stadium is where that truck in the beginning of this episode was headed. So they finally get there to the stadium, and just as they're crossing the field to like meet up with her, I can't quite recall. It's either an airstrike, but the whole thing falls apart. So that they immediately go on the run again. She's reunited with her daughter, but now the plan for evacuation and the plan for whatever was going to happen at the stadium in terms of a government assistance has fallen completely apart. So that sort of springs the entire second season off.
Yeah, I think I don't remember the second season. Was their run to the stadium? Does that episode end with like a giant crowd of survivors trying to get there, fighting through like a horde of zombies thing? Is that the second season ending?
That's the first. Well, I think they actually run. Yes, they run across the field and they fight the zombies and they reunite with the daughter.
I'm thinking of the second season ending where they end up in some other major location
toward the end of the second season, it's winter and they've a new part of the survivors and the ones who have made it through our group are in this giant, I mean, it looks like The Shining, like a lodge, like a big lodge, and it's fully stocked somehow with frozen foods and this whole thing. And so they're living in the lap of luxury, but of course that all falls apart as well.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's fun. I mean, if you're into, let me put it this way. Like if you're into, I think your comparison to Walking Dead is an apt one. Like if you're into like the character development and the thing that ends up in how like humans turn on each other and how factions, what is the cost of being good, what is the reward for being evil, kind of things that these shows always get into, then this probably isn't the main show for you. If you're like, I really love the survival aspect and it's almost like, the set pieces from like video games and stuff like that, but done like I think executed quite well.
I will
and
say
then I
that
think this is the show for you, and it's fun.
Yeah, I will say that I do. It's funny. You're spot on 100%, but they do wink and nod a little bit. They faint at like that morality. So like when the elderly lady's driving the truck or the car down the middle of the street and she stops and that guy's sort of finessing her into driving the car. And as soon as he gets in, of course he turns on her and says, "Get the fuck out of here. I'm going to punch you in the face. I'll hurt you." And it's like, that's as far as we go with any morality or compass to be, to show. The rest of it, like you said, is just moving from piece to piece. Sled, what do you think as far as machetes here? Let's go ahead and just get right into it. Machetes.
Is that what we're giving these? Is machetes? Did we do that last time?
Yes, we did.
Oh god.
Did we?
I must
okay.
have been,
I don't remember.
I must have been so drunk I don't even remember.
Just trying to forget that movie.
Machetes. I mean, I'll give it. We're doing a scale of 5.
Yep.
I'll give it a 3.
Would you watch again? Are you going to watch any more of it?
If there wasn't so much stuff to watch, like there's so much stuff I haven't even gotten caught up on watching that I like want to watch, I would give it a shot. I would at least play it in the background. Maybe I wouldn't pay full attention to it, but
yeah.
No,
it's very much that kind of show that you can watch, kind of half watch. Jazz, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, because it very much scratches that kind of survival itch for me, that kind of like siege survival. And, a lot of my favorite parts, for example, from Snyder's Dawn of the Dead are like the running, escaping elements. I think it's where it's best. So yeah, I mean, I would actually give it, I'll give it a solid 3.5 machetes.
All right.
And yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.33 machetes is where I come into. It's solid fare. I watch I watch both seasons. I watched every episode. It only like the larger vague outlines, like the contours of the show sort of stay with me. There's not a lot of details. I remember, like I said, they do these one-off episodes, which are sort of like, oh, we're just going to do like 48 minutes of escaping from a house. And it's neat. It's a little bit like that directorial trickery, the first season of True Detective, where they had that, famous, who is it? Cary Fukuyama?
Yeah, no. Joji? Yeah.
Anyways, he did that famous 8.5-minute tracking scene, a tracking shot. And it was like with McConaughey breaking into the, doing the undercover drug dealer thing. And I don't know, it just works. So sometimes it works for that stuff. They have some bells and whistles, but no, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's like, I think I texted you guys once that, I had this idea for like a TV show that would basically, and I was going to call it like the good bits or the best parts, which is basically just people doing like the one scene from the movie that they particularly enjoy. And then there's just, with no story surrounding it or something. And that's kind of like what they did with this. And that was, that was fun.
Yeah. I think it would engage me. It would engage me more because if it were in like an isolated, like I think there was one of those Z spinoffs. It was not Walking Dead, but something Fear of the Dead. What was the other one? A spinoff of Walking Dead, but they're on a yacht and they're like, and so there's a group that survives on the yacht, but they have to keep checking into port to resupply and do all this stuff. So I kind of like that. As long as we're all squirreled away somewhere together on an island or a boat or something like that, I can really get into the survival aspect of it. But this one's more sprawling and a little more freeform.
Yeah.
But all right, let's keep it short and tight like always for episode 2 here at Prime Cuts. Thank you all of you who tuned in, and we'll have another episode out for you shortly. Thanks again for joining us.